let's go, because you know what I came in to do.
I don't get paid for overtime. I'm here to fight.
MICHEL Rivera was a little too green in there, and Frank Martin basically thrashed him on the scorecards. Frank is now 27 years of age. MICHEL Rivera is 24. Rivera can come back and be a force in the division, actually, I believe. He needs to make some adjustments to what he's doing. I don't think he was making excuses when he said the weight cut hurt him, but I see it like this. Against an inferior fighter, you could go through that same weight cut and it drains you. But because you have more ability than that fighter, you could get away with it. You can't get away with that at this level here. You just can't. He wasn't able to make use of his reach advantage. He loses for the first time in his career. He's now 24-1 with 14 knockouts. Frank Martin raises his slate to 17-0 with 12 knockouts. Martin, wide-legged stance, using the finisher, but he doesn't rely on that. He's got good legs, knows how to use the ring very well, but he doesn't back up into the ropes and make basic errors like that. Rivera was outmaneuvered. Frank Martin walked him onto shots all night, and Rivera threw telegraphed right hands, and it was his backhand, his right hand against Martin's backhand, and Martin was tattooing him in that battle. His left hand power punch is very accurate, and when he throws it correctly, it's so straight and beautifully delivered. This is a very well coached fighter. The way he transitions from the shell to the left hand counter, it's all good stuff. It's all good stuff. These kids have studied the Mayweather blueprint. Now, I'm not talking about money, friend money all about the place. I'm talking strictly boxing. And they're very well schooled, these American kids coming up. So far, so good. You have to give Derek James the credit for this one here. Frank was walking Rivera into traps all night, basically. In the 7th, Rivera, sensing the fight, is running away from him. He tried to trade with Frank, and he squared his feet up, and a left-right combination put him down. He wasn't really hurt. He was caught with his feet squared up, off balance, but a legitimate knockdown nonetheless. By this time, he needs a knockout to win. Rivera, who had Ali written on the band of his trunks, had the black and white trunks like Ali, only his were a little more glittered up. Spent too much time in there posing and didn't really have any answers. Frank Martin also caught him with beautiful uppercuts to the stomach. Took advantage of Rivera basically pouring with his jab, not really snapping that jab out there. So he's got some work to do, Rivera. And Frank Martin is trying to close down on the big names. He called out Rolly Romero, but Rolly would get schooled. Even Rivera would school Rolly. But I enjoyed the display of boxing. As good as Frank Martin looked, the temptation to go overboard must be resisted. As Coach Malachi Williams, he says Frank Martin is good, but he won't have any advantages against Tank and Shakur. They'll eat him alive, in his opinion. Tank, Shakur, Devin. I'm not sure if Ryan is a major talent, but he does have power. Genuine power, I believe. Lomachenko, old but still can't be counted out. William Sabeda, volume puncher, fit, strong. Isaac Cruz is highly rated and he's having a good run. There are some serious tests out there and he's up for the challenge. So he's an exciting addition to 135, which is a very good division if the fights get made. Now I know everybody's firmly on one side or the other, but this is the problem that is a microcosm of larger issues in society. Spence and Crawford is not really down to two fighters not wanting to fight each other. Spence and Crawford not happening is the result of boxing promotions, network politics. In this scenario, Bob Arum's beef with Al Heyman, sanctioning bodies, and their corruption. The modern day culture of in-house fights that didn't start with Al Heyman, but he did become the poster boy of in-house fights. Why it's a bigger problem and a microcosm of other issues in society. You have two working class boxers, two African American men, trying to be good at what they do and trying to make some money. But yet, and look, I'm going to be real, the Spence fans did go overboard in their hatred for Terence Crawford. They did. But what we have now is working class boxing fans, for the most part, trying to tear down two working class boxers who are risking their health in the ring, while these corporate entities ride off scot-free. It's not dissimilar to what happens between major record labels and rappers whose content represent a street lifestyle. Well, I ain't seen no execs taking no bullets or be condemned for the ills of what the music does to society, supposedly. But the rappers, they'll take the bullets and they'll take the condemnation and they'll take a lot more other shit as well. You know, there's people going up to the picket lines where the nurses or whatever other workers are striking. Oh, you fuck this, you fuck that, and fuck that. Well, a lot of the investment that goes into the NHSs, which is paid by the average person's taxes, ends up in the private sector. Who benefits off that? You know, yeah, it fucking is a brain ache sometimes when London Underground isn't working. It really is. Or British Rail. The Underground, it's really a brain ache. But, you know, all these people are trying to do is get a wage that reflects inflation at this time and decent working conditions. While there's shareholders in London Underground and British Rail making millions. Record profits. Go look it up. It's easy to want to be mad at the person on the picket line, but you've got to think a bit deeper, beneath the surface. If the boxing fans didn't divide into this tribalism and turn it into Crawford versus Spence fans and directed their venom where it needed to be directed, I reckon we would have got the fight. You're more powerful than what you think you are. It all depends where you put your energy. Dan Azeez utilised an underrated jab, worked the body, the right uppercut, chipped away at Rocky Fielding. Fielding went to the ropes and was basically looking to turn over a left-hand counter and see if he could catch Dan walking in. The inactivity caught up to Fielding. He couldn't quite time them punches like that. He didn't land. Fielding tried to put combinations together, but he could never get a rhythm going. Dan was out punching him, out jabbing him, and that's where Fielding's corner had to be concerned that Dan had the better jab. Dan's got deceptively long arms. It's weird how he wears that retro gear, them Hagler S shorts, not the same colour or anything. And Hagler used to do the same thing with his jab. A lot of people, like Minter said, when he thought he was out of range with Marvin Hagler, and Minter had a decided height advantage. But Marvin had long ass arms. And he said every time he thought he was out of range, Marvin would catch him. And that's what happened to Fielding. Fielding complained about Dan Azeez's head. The referee cautioned Dan Azeez. But look, you're 6 foot, one long beanpole guy. Dan Azeez is 5'10", voluntarily going to the ropes, often crouching down to meet Dan Azeez head on. Dan's coming in. What do you think Dan's going to do? He's got to dip under Rocky's arms. What do you think he's going to do? Stand upright and just get peppered? Rocky needed to be holding the ring center and keeping range. Not doing that. I don't think Dan intentionally used the head. No, I don't think he did. But Rocky wasn't up for the scrap. When that body shot decked him in the 7th, it was just a matter of time. Rocky was cut over one of his eyes and was looking a little pitiful. Azeez landed a right hand to the pit of the stomach and dropped Fielding. That was in the 7th round. In the 8th round, he finished him off. Buddy McGirt is on his UK hiatus right now. He's working with Dan Azeez, Dillian White, and he was there. Let's see if Dan can keep progressing. The next step might be the European title. I believe that might be against Matteo Bordeleak. He had the belt last. He got knocked out by Callum Smith last time out. But I believe he still holds the belt, unless he vacated before he went in that eliminator with Callum. Excellent year for Dan. He's fought 3 times, kept busy, beat up Reece Cartwright, UD'd Shakan Pitters, and stopped Rocky Fielding. So they're keeping him busy. I haven't heard nobody from Sky, Ben Shalom, talking about world title fights. He's ranked number 7 with the WBC, number 9 with the IBF, number 12 with the WBO, number 2 with the WBA. But with one man holding 3 straps, Artur Beterbiev, there's not much room to maneuver. If Bivol fights Buatsi next, Dan Azeez could be up after, unless Beterbiev and Bivol get this unification on. I don't think they should sit around. There's good fights out there, international or domestic. And Dan's building a little resume there. Building a nice little resume. Got to keep it going. I think they're being a bit cautious with Chris now, with a potential world title on the horizon. Giving them this guy here as a main event opponent is strategic. And it's probably coming off the back of the Isaac Chamberlain fight, which was a war. You put Chris in any matchup with any of the top domestic guys. MICHEL Lawal, Riakporhe, a rematch of Isaac. Isaac was there looking for a rematch. He's in a war. Chris will be in a war. And his opponent, Christian named Armen, hurt Chris. And he wasn't really supposed to do that. He was brought in there for Chris to really do as he pleased. He was undersized, didn't have a reputation, and after he hurt Chris, he was getting very ambitious. So we got to keep perspective on it. No disrespect to Chris Billiam Smith, he was the headline act, but I think more people saw Dan Azeez's fight with Rocky Fielding as more the headline fight. No one knew Chris's opponent. Who was his opponent? He looked really small. I never heard of him. I don't know what he's capable of or not capable of. He did hurt Chris in the second round. Got hit by an overhand right Chris and he stopped punching for a while. And Chris had to subdue the guy. He knocked him out spectacularly with a right hand, I believe, in the fourth. I just believe Chris will need a lot of circumstances in his favour to win one of the belts. For some reason, people think Junior Makabu is child's play. If Chris gets caught with one of them left hooks, he'll have serious issues. That's all I know. There are opportunities there. Jai Opatea, who beat Maurice Bradis for the IBF belt, he had 2 breaks in his jaw from that fight. And it looked like a pretty bad injury. Sometimes fighters never fully recover from them injuries. So I'm keeping an open book on Jai for a little while. I just don't see Chris beating Lawrence Okoli. I just don't see it. A lot of people believe Gulamarian would be his best shot. And that might be the route to go. If Sky have got this open checkbook like they seem to be flashing these days, maybe pay him a whole load of money, get him in Bournemouth, try to stitch him up. Other options are a Richard Riakporhe rematch. That wouldn't be a bad fight. And don't get me wrong, just because I'm saying I don't fancy his chances like a lot of people who support Chris or support Ben Shalom do, it is time for them to go for a belt. It is time. I don't see there's any more trying to develop Chris. I think Chris is big, he's strong, he's fit, but he doesn't have exceptional talent or speed to me. He's got some power there though. He's got some power. I mean, he's barely at a European level, and I can count the amount of wars he's been in. The first Riakporhe fight, which he lost, that was a war. The Tommy McCarthy fight, the first one, he made amends in the rematch, but the first one was a war. The Isaac Chamberlain fight earlier this year, great fight to watch though. And it would be the same in a world title fight. It would be a life and death event unless he landed something early and got his opponent out of there. It was a great finish, highlight reel knockout. And I will look forward to seeing Chris challenge for one of the belts. He'll give it his all. And he can potentially give most of them guys a tough fight. Let's see what happens in 2023. If Okoli is heading over to Sky for 2023, it's going to be interesting to see how Ben Shalom delivers for Okoli, Chris Billiam Smith, and Richard Riakporhe. Because that's 3 guys that previously fought on Matchroom cards that he's going to have to deliver big for. You know, like Chris Billiam Smith is fighting in Bournemouth now, and he has a lot of expectations. Ben Shalom said, world title next for Chris Billiam Smith. Well, what about Richard Riakporhe? He beat Chris Billiam Smith and is still undefeated and has made more improvements to his game than Chris Billiam Smith, in my opinion, than when they had their first fight a few years back. Why doesn't Chris Billiam Smith want to avenge the only loss in his career? Why is Richard Riakporhe asking for a rematch and he won the fight, but Billiam Smith wants to go into world title fights? Look, there does come a time where Sky are going to have to monitor their investments a little more wisely. There's not much money in the cruiserweight division, yet you're flooding it with Billiam Smith, Riakporhe, and then Okoli. If you deliver Chris Billiam Smith a title fight ahead of Richard Riakporhe, how's Richard Riakporhe going to feel about that? And he's already beaten Billiam Smith. Errol Spence was hurt in a recent car crash, so his comeback has been pushed back. He's saying probably around May or June, April. There was no specific details about his injuries. He said he was going to make an announcement 4 days after the accident, and it was assumed he was going to fight Keith Thurman. So I don't know what happens there. It's not a good period for Errol Spence, you know, like we was hoping the Crawford fight would be announced, and that didn't happen, and now he's injured, and he said after the accident stuff started hurting and things like that. Hopefully we'll get him back in the ring and probably have to have a tune-up. I don't see the Crawford fight, if it was ever going to happen. If it does, it would probably be late 2023, maybe 2024. These are supposedly the real numbers for Crawford's pay-per-view against David Avanesian. He done 120,000 on BLK Prime's debut, so it's a success. $14 a pop. 14,000 tickets sold at the CHI Health Arena. Well done. I don't know how the PBC can't get the guarantees together. If Terence could do that on his own, if he was to fight Spence on pay-per-view on Showtime or Fox, surely they could do 400,000. That would surely cover the guarantees, whatever they are. R.I.P. boxing referee Steve Smoger passed away at 72 after a long illness. Steve officiated classics like Pavlik Taylor 1, Ward Augustus, ooh, great fight, Trinidad Hopkins, Forrest versus Mosley 1, and he's also known, he has a reputation for letting fights go on too long. The one I do remember, I can't say I can back up him having a reputation for that. I remember him letting Roy Jones take that final right hook against Denis Lebedev. That stained in my memory, that one there.